New York City. Room 3327, Hotel New Yorker. January 1943, an old man lies alone on a narrow bed. No family beside him, no colleagues, no money. Outside his window, the city he helped electrify glows for miles in every direction. He can't afford the bill for the room he's dying in. Right now, you are holding, wearing, or sitting near technology this man dreamed up more than 100 years ago. He designed the wireless world you live in. He sketched the first blueprints for machines that could think and move on their own. And he died broke. Alone, forgotten, feeding pigeons out of a hotel window. How does the man who invented the future end up with nothing? The forgotten genius who invented the future A&D died in total poverty. Picture the room itself. Blueprints stacked in messy towers. Notebooks filled with equations no one else could read. Sketches for machines that on paper could pull unlimited energy straight out of the air. While the world outside his window built empires on the pieces of his work they were allowed to keep, the man who dreamed it all up was tracing the blueprint of the modern age completely alone. This is the buried history of a man who gave civilization everything and kept almost nothing for himself. Right now, in your pocket, in your walls, in the signals moving invisibly through the air around you, concepts this man scribbled by hand over a century ago are still running the modern world. Wireless signals, remote control devices, the basic architecture of how electricity moves through your home. All of it traces back to notes written decades before anyone had a name for what he was describing. Picture that gap. On one side, a hyper-connected 2026, glass skyscrapers, phones syncing wirelessly without a second thought. On the other, a dim 1940s hotel room, a single desk lamp, an old man scratching equations into a worn notebook by hand. How does someone see that far into the future and still get completely erased from the rewards of his own brilliance? To understand that, you have to understand the fight he was in. He wasn't just building inventions. He was threatening an entire business model. At the time, powerful industrial titans were racing to build electrical grids they could own, meter, and profit from, wire by wire, customer by customer. His idea was different and far more dangerous to them. A system to transmit electrical power wirelessly, potentially to anyone, anywhere, without needing to run a wire to their door at all. If it worked the way he believed it could, it wouldn't just change technology, it would collapse the entire financial structure being built around controlling electricity. So the people funding him quietly began pulling away. He was a brilliant engineer. But he was, by most accounts, a poor businessman. He trusted people he shouldn't have. He signed away rights he should have protected. He believed ideas alone should be enough to secure his place in history. They weren't. And one by one, the patents and partnerships that should have made him wealthy slipped through his fingers into the hands of men who understood leverage far better than he understood people. But wireless power wasn't his only forgotten breakthrough. Decades before anyone used the words robotics or drone, he was already designing small vehicles that could be guided remotely, without a single wire connecting them to the hand controlling them. Machines that responded to commands from a distance. Devices that hinted unmistakably at a future filled with autonomous systems. Machines making decisions with minimal human input. At the time, most people didn't have the vocabulary to describe what he was showing them. So instead, they reached for the easiest label available. Newspapers began painting him as eccentric, unstable, a dreamer chasing fantasies too strange to be taken seriously. Some of his later theories were genuinely difficult to prove, even for other scientists. But the mad genius label stuck far more easily than any of his actual research did, and it became a convenient way to dismiss him without engaging with his ideas at all. Meanwhile, his most ambitious theory of all sat quietly in his notebooks. The idea that raw energy already exists all around us in the atmosphere itself, waiting for the right method to capture it. For most of the 20th century, this idea was treated as fringe speculation, barely worth serious study. But in laboratories today, in 2026, researchers working on ambient and atmospheric energy harvesting are revisiting concepts that sound remarkably close to what he was proposing generations ago. Not identical, not proven exactly as he imagined it, but close enough to make you wonder just how far ahead of his own century he actually was. And still, back in that hotel room, none of that recognition had arrived yet. As the money ran out and the world moved past him, his life narrowed. Fewer visitors, fewer letters, days spent in near total isolation, surrounded by pigeons he fed by hand outside his window, some of the only companionship he had left. Here was a man who had once imagined a fully connected planet, machines speaking to machines across continents, quietly disappearing from a world that had stopped speaking to him at all. Creditors circled, debts piled up, and as his health declined, so did his ability to protect what remained of his legacy. Behind the scenes, corporate and legal maneuvering ensured that credit for several of his breakthroughs quietly shifted toward men with better lawyers, better funding, and far better relationships with the press. History, it turns out, isn't only written by the victors. Sometimes it's written by whoever controls the patents. But this story didn't end in that hotel room in 1943. In recent years, independent researchers and engineers have gone back to his original notebooks, using modern computing power to model experiments that were simply impossible to test accurately in his own lifetime. Some of his final, most radical theories, ideas about energy and physics that sounded almost mystical a century ago, are now being re-examined by scientists chasing the same modern goal he was chasing all along: clean, abundant, sustainable energy. Maybe the right question was never was he ahead of his time. Maybe the real question is how much of our current time is still quietly running on blueprints he drew in the dark, with no one left to thank him for it. He didn't die a failure. He died before the world finished catching up to him. And in many ways, it still hasn't fully caught up, even now. So the next time your phone connects wirelessly, the next time a signal reaches you invisibly through the air, remember the room in the New Yorker hotel. The stacks of forgotten notebooks, the old man at the window feeding pigeons, holding the blueprint for a future he would never get to see. If this story moved you, that's exactly why Secret Horizon exists. We uncover the people history tried to erase and the ideas the world wasn't ready for. Every episode, we dig past the headlines to find the real story underneath. Subscribe so the next forgotten genius doesn't stay forgotten. And if you know a story like this one the history books left out, tell us in the comments. We read every single one, and some of our best episodes have started right there. This documentary presents a historical account based on publicly available research and commonly reported biographical details. Some elements of this story remain debated among historians, and interpretations of specific events may vary between sources. Our goal is to explore this history honestly, distinguishing well documented events from areas where the historical record is incomplete or disputed, and to give credit to a legacy that shaped the modern world.